Hello! Right, sorry, I wasn't quite there then. Welcome to One Grey Dot. Moving forward on some of the things we're doing. I'm not going to do a recording of my drawing today because I've not really got time. But instead, do check out the facebook.com/groups/beanstalk stories so you can get a daily-ish update of the current book that I'm working on, which is all my own work, therefore I can release it into the world however I want, and people are reacting really well to it. This is a bit different though. It came up on, by the way, I need to tell you what this is. This is a glove, all right? It's a cotton glove from Boots. I think this one's about 3 years old now. And it just means that when I'm working on my Wacom tablet, I don't make a mess of it, and it kind of cleans as it goes. So that's why we wear these sort of things. So if you're wondering if I've got an illness, no, I haven't. Look, it's hand. Anyway, strange boy. Right, so what are we going to talk about? This is something which came up on one of the forums that I'm on, and it's a question that somebody asked, and they said they wanted to actually buy themselves a digital tablet workspace kind of thing, and there were lots of reasons again for it, but when I got talking to them, they said the problem was that they weren't developing a style. They wanted a style of artwork to go with, and they felt that they were being restricted by pen and paper, and they couldn't work enough, and lots of reasons. And then they showed one of the pictures that he'd done, and because she managed to get a hold of a tablet, and she was really happy because she'd started developing something. But I could see that she was still going to get frustrated, and one of the reasons is it's. Let's see if I can bring it up. She brought up this question. She said, my drawings are too tight. I spend too much time on them. So she kind of like would start off, and she admired the people who did artwork, and it just looked so fluid and it came out and that kind of thing. If you look at my art, that's the thing that people really point out. They say they're just so light and airy and they're all over the place. Now, if you look at my artwork, if you go to One Grey Dot, maybe we should do that at some point. Maybe not. And if you look at my artwork, you'll see that actually I can do really, really tight rendering and stuff like that. So let's see if I can bring it up, because it might be useful for what I'm talking about a bit later. Let's see if we can bring it up. It's on the other screen, so I'm just going to drag it across. Hang on, I'm going to sort it out. OneGreyDot.com. Right, so this is my website. I think you might find it useful to be able to see. Right, so we have many different styles on here. I have to move my little head, aren't I? Move me down there so I can show you. Right, okay. So we got lots of different styles going on here. So this is all my own work. So this is OneGreyDot.com. And you'll see, so I particularly love doing this sort of style. All right, this is my style. If there's ever a style to go, this is my style. It's how I roll. And actually, if I go into portfolio, I can show you some more stuff. Possibly not. No, I haven't uploaded the new things. So yeah, so I do sort of like all the things, but you can see that this is the one that really I enjoy doing and love doing. I like doing these, but if somebody said to me, Andy, if you want to draw one style for the rest of your life, what would it be? And it would be this. Okay, so this is a looser style, and this is, funnily enough, for children's picture books. If you have a look at about the best sellers, and they don't have to be well-made and well-known people, the picture books that sell best are the ones in this kind of realm, which is just great, and people are starting to really ask me to do those now. I can also do tighter styles. So you can see on here, there's a very tight style. This takes just so long to do, and it's great, and I love doing it. But it's like, I mean, we're talking months of work to be able to do one book. So very expensive is this one. Then we've got down here, we've got these sort of styles, and this is all done in ballpoint pen on paper, so you don't need a graphics tablet. Cheap paper. This is cheap paper and a ballpoint pen, and I still illustrated a whole book. The colour is done in Corel Painter, but that's just because I couldn't be bothered getting the paints out. This again, slightly tighter style, not as much as the Animals of Spencer Fold, so you can sort of like see that, yes, you do take a long time. And those kind of illustrations, where have I gone? I've gone again. Hang on, put me back in the frame. See? These sort of pictures, you can do sort of like tighter stuff, but it's going to take you a long time. And one of the things that I found that I was doing the artwork for one of the companies I was working with is I was finding I was taking more and more time, and I was being more and more tight. I was trying to get an accurate corner, and there was something, it almost sucked the life out of it. It was like a still image, whereas actually the stuff which I'm doing now more has a flow to it and a movement to it, and I'm really pushing the envelope on that for myself, trying to get the kind of energy into a picture. Now, I think it's what the person was talking about. And the question is, how do you actually get to that? Well, it all comes down to style. And I think the problem was that she was wanting to create, she was just thinking about the end result and wasn't actually thinking about where it goes along. See, illustration style is, it's a funny thing. I didn't really kind of understand it myself until maybe a couple of years back. I've been illustrating for like over a quarter of a century. And I was trying to work out, how could I get a style? How could I find something to work with? And then I started breaking it down and understanding, actually, style is a product. It's not what you start with at the beginning. So this is how to develop an illustration style. So we're going to start off with this. I'm going to give you a little formula here. All right, let me just move me around. I want to just put myself down here somewhere. So out of the picture a little bit. And I've got a little box made up, you see. There we are. If I put myself just there, hopefully it'll work out okay. Right. So here we go. This is about how to develop an illustration style. When you have got the elements of design correct and how you actually do the drawing, all right, then that equals a style. What do I mean by that? Well, I've put a little slideshowy thing together for you to show you. All done on Photoshop. Rather good. Right, so this is the first thing. So this is the formula, and I'm sure I've missed bits out on this. I really have, but it's worthwhile sort of like bear in mind. So the design has two elements to it and execution. Let's have a look at it. First of all, composition. What do I mean by composition? Well, composition is actually, you can start by thinking it in terms of layout. So you'll see me how I do my own drawing process, and it's not unusual. It's actually what a lot of illustrators do, concept artists and people, but normal artists don't do this. Normal artists move things around and draw little thumbnail pictures and sketches and all the rest of it. Illustrators start with blobs, okay? We start with solid shapes. Well, I do. I don't know about Shu Rayner. Awesome bloke. Might put a link in the description, but he's going to do his own illustration course, so do I really want to push it? Yeah, I'll promote him and tell him I've promoted him. Haha, Shu, you're awesome. He's been doing this a lot longer than me, so yeah, kudos, man. Anyway, so it's me. I'm mad. Anyway, so when I start with blobs to get the layouts right, because the idea is that if you can understand what a picture looks like from a distance, then you can understand what it looks like close up. And you can go into an art gallery, especially ones where you can get a long way away from the pictures, and you can see what the picture is before you get anywhere near it, because of the composition means that actually it's more symbolic. Sorry, it's more recognizable. It's a bit like when you see a person stood in a distance, you know it's a person because you know the shape of a person. It's that kind of idea. But it also goes on to how you frame it. So you want blacks on whites and everything else. Anyway, we're going to go into this in the undesigned course. Sorry, undrawing course. Undesigned course? Undrawing course. But it also means you're making choices about things like extreme wide angles and short angle shots, whether it's going to be a bird's eye view, so that's looking downwards, or a worm's eye view, so looking upwards from the floor, or if it's a normal view. So if I just flip back onto my my thing here, I remember here. So this picture here, all right, this picture here is a worm's eye view because you're looking from the floor upwards, yeah? And the bird's eye view is much more this one here. So you're looking downwards, and this is an extreme wide angle view shot. I love doing these. These are my favorite views to draw. In fact, anything like that and in all my illustrations, part of my style is to try and put an extreme view in. So there's extreme views, there's wide angle shots, there's everything. I just love doing those because they're more interesting. And I create the composition, and then I force myself to draw according to the composition. So composition comes first. In the very beginning, composition comes first. If you get the composition right, the rest of the picture flows. And this is kind of like the direction. In fact, we'll check that in a minute. So you make design. So you're doing the composition first and deciding what that looks like. Then you make a color choice. Now, colors They tell stories, they have meanings, and depending on which culture you're in, they mean different things as well. So you'll be used to red meaning passion, love, warmth, heat, but it can also mean, you get a little red cross next to you. They don't use red ink, I don't think, in schools anymore because it made people feel guilty and bad. You get the red letter that dropped through the doormat. But in my other role as a church minister is, I do church. Weird, huh? Anyway, my other role as a church minister is to look out for things like red letter days, in other words, special days of the year, like harvest and Christmas and Easter and all those kind of things. So red's really good. And so it's kind of like it's difficult, but the colour choices you make, broadly in the design concept, is what's the colour saying? So, dark colours, light colours, right? Do you want monotone? Do you want grayscale, black and white? Do you want to use a restricted palette, so maybe only 2 or 3 colours that are really close together in a narrow spectrum? Or do you want to do a full range, in which case you're starting to get colour clashes and things, so you have to know how to work with colour to be able to understand. Again, more in the on-drawing course, everybody. So that all comes down to it in that. So colour choices is part of design. All right, next one. Character. So characterization. Now you might just be thinking, sort of like what's a cartoon character look like or whatever, but there's quite a few different things. So there's kind of like a triangle. I picked this up from SVS Learn, so I'm not claiming to have the original on this, but it's kind of what I work with anyway. So character is abstract, realistic, or symbolic. So a symbol, for example. If you saw a man at work sign, which is roughly, I'm going to get this completely wrong now, aren't I? But a man at work sign might be something like, the man holding up the umbrella. All right. So it's kind of like that, isn't it? Something like that, is it? No, I don't know. So if you saw that on a road sign, you wouldn't actually think, man putting up an umbrella. You'd actually think man at work or woman at work. Remember, everybody, do not be sexist. And so that's very much symbolic. Abstract really is kind of like real free kind of feeling. So it's kind of wishy-washy, not very kind of like accurate at all. And then you've got realistic, which is kind of like the animal to Spencer Fold kind of stuff. The highly rendered, almost photographic quality. And it's a choice that you make between those three and the balance between all three, which is how you remember how you can create that design. So, and it all goes into character. So you might be doing manga is part of the character design. So that's a style that's recognised. You quite often think about Tony Ross and Quentin Blake. They've got very much as like a scratchy style, and my style falls more into that, although mine is slightly more realistic because of where I've come from and how I've developed my various different processes. So, so all of those kind of things. How you also characterise a character. So, eye size, how you draw an eye, how you draw feet, how long the arms are, how you draw hands. It's great. Watch video on Tony Ross about drawing Horrid Henry, and he goes, well, if you draw it like this, now you get to the hands, and I can't draw hands, so I don't bother. I draw them like this. It's just great. Yeah, you just can't draw, so I just draw what I want. I can draw, and I still draw hands loosely because it's more fun. It's more energy. You're telling a story. The story must be that. We'll come on to that in a second, if I remember. Remind me. You can't. Don't worry about it. So, proportions. Next is, proportions and story. Let's try and remember those. Maybe I should make a note. I'll make a note. That'll be a good idea. Let's make a note. I'll make a note on this one here. Hang on. I want to mention proportions. No, not proportions. Process, isn't it? Process. Yeah, I'm thinking of this live. Can you tell this? Process and story. Okay. There we go. Why am I doing it this way? Because this is how I teach normally. Seriously, I teach and suddenly go, oh, I've got an idea, and off I go again. It's all part of being dyslexic and autistic and things. Right, so where are we up to? Right, so that's the character. Next one. That's okay. So this is what's execution. Execution, rendering. Okay, so rendering is how you actually put things together. So we're going to think of things like textures. All right. How you decide to light the scene. How you use, if you're using paper or maybe textures. So with Photoshop isn't quite so good on textures. The textures do have some effect. But usually it's kind of like you're almost like just take the ground that you're choosing to work on. The ground's called the paper or the canvas or whatever. And then when you draw on top of it, the pencil or whatever doesn't really interact with the paper underneath. If you want that, go more towards Corel Painter, but that's actually quite expensive. I recommend Rebel 3. Honestly, Rebel 3 is just awesome. You'll see me using that all the while. It's only 60 quid. I say only, but seriously, in terms of pricing, it's really good. And the watercolor actually interacts with the paper and things, so you really be able to choose your own ground, and then it actually all absorbs and things. Very clever, very clever. So that's your ground, but then in rendering you decide whether or not you're going to use the washes, or whether or not it's going to be opaque, so more gouache, so the materials you're using, the paint you're using, they're using pencils, are you using pencil crayon, using biro on paper, so I'd do that. So all of these different things are all go into rendering, and then actually how you do the rendering itself. So, so you could have a quick scribble. So if I go back into this and I give you, let's just go in. No, we'll go into that one, I think. So if I was to, let's just use this again. If I was to kind of like, you do rendering like this. So this is kind of like just easy kind of cross hatching kind of thing going on. You can see how it's all building up. All right. Or then you could actually sort of like just use lines next to each other. So rather than kind of like the scribble kind of thing, it's exactly the same thing, but you're now overlying lines next to each other. Okay. Takes a little bit longer. Although there are cheap methods that you can use. Or then you can actually sort of like, you can actually have not laying lines, but it's quite hard to do on this. It's not quite a thick enough pencil. It's trickier, should we say. There we are. You can see how I'm sort of like, able to change the grade depending on pressure. I've not got this quite set up right for, I've gone into that flat voice again, haven't I? It's not quite good. It's a lot easier doing this with a real pencil. But again, depending on how you kind of like, you can lie your pencil down, you can actually change how dark everything is by pressing hard or pressing soft. So again, this is all about how you're rendering, how you're building up together. And that word rendering has now been used in 3D work to, when you're rendering something and you're spending time for the picture to build, and it's all about how the lighting hits the materials and that it's that's on. So in other words, your light hits a hand and it reflects off, how much goes off, bounces off it, how much goes into the skin and bounces off the layers beneath it. And there's all sorts of things like go on like that in rendering in computers. And you're playing your video games and all that kind of thing. There's rendering going on, and it's kind of like the same sort of thing when we're talking about being a traditional artist. That we're talking about, so like how's the picture built, how's the materials, how does lighting work, and all that kind of thing, and then how are you actually showing that? Is it more cell animation, is it more cartoon animation? All these choices are going into actually how rendering works. So there's your rendering, and the next one is line work. Now I've put a question mark after that because. Although my work requires lines, it doesn't always. So sometimes I will drop the lines out. So I was working on I don't know if it's still on. I'll just have a look, see if it's still there somewhere. No, it's not, unfortunately. No. So at this point, when you think, where's it gone? There we are. So a recent picture I've been working to see if I might actually have got it. Hang on. Let's go to Instagram. Just going to and go to my homepage, and I might be able to show you this. Oh yeah, here we go. Right. See if I can show you this. There we are. So this guy here, all right, will you come up if I do that? There we go. So hopefully that's there. Let's just check. Yeah. So this is one of the pictures I've done recently for a bit of fan art, just for fun. And you'll see that there's no line work on that whatsoever. It's all rendered in a pencil crayon kind of style. So they're the choices. The design I've chosen has been to, as an action pose, I have made a choice with the size of its head. All of those things go on to be able to draw, to design what this character is. Okay, so that's why I've said line question mark. Because actually, if you decide to do line, again, you've got choices to make. So you've got a comic inking style, you've got a Quentin Blake wiggly line kind of thing, which doesn't really do much. It's just a scribble that then you put the inks and the colours and everything else over the top. There's so many different choices that you can make. So what is style in the end? Well, that's why I put this up here to remind myself of these two little bits. Process. What you're doing in the end is putting together for yourself this thing here, which is choices that you make, which go along here, and this is called your process. And everybody talks about trying to get a process in art, and this is really what the process is. It's about the choices. It's really about the choices that you're making. You can put it in different orders. Basically, you need to do composition, color, character. They're the choices that you have to make really early on in a design process. But its process is how you design the picture, followed by how you execute the picture with these basic things here, and that gives you a process. And you repeat it over and over again. And by repeating it over and over again, you get used to doing things in a certain way. It becomes kind of muscle memory, and it takes hours. Hundreds, if not thousands of hours to get a process in place. But think about it in terms of hundreds of hours, all right? Mr. Jake Parker, look him up, brilliant chap. Not sure he didn't come up with the triangle of the abstract, symbolic, and realistic. He says that, he suggests, instead of thinking in terms of 10,000 hours, which is a long time, think in terms of 10,000 minutes. And actually, I would say if you spend 10,000 minutes drawing exactly the same way over and over and over again, you're going to get a style at the end of it because you will have developed a process. Subject to process, though, process is subject to one very important thing, yeah? And that is story. Because when you're an illustrator, the thing you're doing is you're drawing a story. You're trying to tell a story. You're choosing the moments. So although you've got all this design and everything else, the moments that you choose, and again, we're going to go into that. What do you choose? The moments you choose are what lead you to create the process. So you've got your process of how you're going to act it, but then it's got to be part of the story. So whilst I would have loved to have done the Animals of Spencer fold, this very, where are we? This very highly rendered piece. We tried to do it, first of all, in the very, in the kind of like Quentin Blake cartoon style, and it didn't work. And I actually had to back off from the project for 4 years until I suddenly realized I could do this. And until I developed some more skills and said suddenly, hang on, I can do this. I know what to do. And once I'd done that, we could render it out properly, and this came out perfectly then. But you couldn't have told this story in this particular way using the cartoony style. On the other hand, the thing which I'm working on at the moment, so I've got a book for an award nominee, Pete Linus, and so these are just 2 pictures from the spreads. Not this one in the middle, not this one, this another one. But the style fits perfectly for what he wanted. The same with the bunny here. This is for another story which I'm doing. So it does mean that if you decide to go down a certain process and a certain style that you choose, you're only going to have options of drawing certain pictures. So you have to make that decision, really. Conversely, if you're known for one style, it's easier for publishers and art directors to choose you because they know what they're going to get. They know that every time you draw in that style. So it's easier for them to do. So you're giving yourself more options at the same time giving yourself less options, if that makes sense. So the best thing about I would suggest is to find a style you love doing, a process you love doing. So design, execution, makes your style. Find a style that you love and just do that one style, because whilst you will not be more open for lots of directors coming into you and saying, hey, look, could you do this for us? It does mean that actually they know what they're getting, and therefore it'll be quicker for you, it'll be easier for you, and more pleasurable in the end. But your choices of process are subject to the story, and the story that has to be told. And I think that's probably about... Oh, no, one more thing. This is the most important thing of all. I never forgot the most important thing. So going back to this question, my drawings are too tight, I spend too much time on them, how do I develop my style? Well, actually, it strikes me that her style that she wants is she wants a very fluid style. She wants to have something more relaxed than anything else. And so to develop that kind of, I really admire that style, she's got to go right back to the beginning, right back to over here, to this area, to start working on the composition. So actually getting the images of other people and start saying, what is the composition that we're after? What colour choices have they made? What's their character design in terms of symbolism, abstract, and realistic drawing that they're doing? How have they rendered that? So how have they done their execution? And have they got any lines? And then taking, what you do to develop your style is you take elements of other artists that you really like. So get together a whole sort of like portfolio of other art, and you say, hey, I really like how they've done that. That fits my imagination of what kind of style I'd love in the end. I love that bit over there. So maybe the way they do the eyes, maybe the line work, maybe the rendering, maybe how they put their pictures together, the composition, all of those kind of things come together, and you start mixing them and blending them. And then you practice those individual bits each time you draw a picture. So you say, well, the composition choices I'm making, I like this person, so I'll choose this. These are the colours that I use, so I'll choose these colours for this picture. And then you start to do that over and over again, practicing those elements that you have chosen, which mix together to create your unique style. And as you do that, you stop copying what other people have done. And as you do that, you start to relax into it. And it kind of like, it's a bit like a cake. You start a cake and you've got different ingredients and you mix those cake mixtures together. And as you blend and blend and blend and blend, it finally becomes the cake mix. And then you put it in the oven, you leave it. Okay, so it's a good analogy, is this? And you leave it, and then out comes a beautiful cake. It's had a chemical change. And that's what happens when you develop your process and you work on it, and then you work on it for some time. And at the end of it, you get this thing called a style, and you'll get other people looking afterwards and going, that's amazing, that's great, I can see elements of this in it, and yet it's yours. And that is exactly what people say to me. And that, everybody, is how you develop your illustration style. Thank you very, very much for listening to me. Put this back in the middle. Thank you very much for listening. Do check out the Facebook group. I'd really appreciate if you did that, so you can see how those choices affect my drawings and the stories that goes on as we release it on a daily basis. And keep an eye out in the future for the Undrawing course. And when we've done it, I'll put a link in the bottom. So if you see a link in the bottom, you know it's all ready. Thank you so much for watching. All of that. Good grief. Thank you. And probably goodbye.